and especially being Black trans.
Hmm.
I'm just saying.
Well, I commend you for, standing up and being open and honest. I always think is the key to all of this. A lot of the girls have, they structure their lives about being realistic and passing. And this is probably something that's put their lives in jeopardy many times. And like you said, if they were open and honest right from the get-go, men might be less likely to try something, but even at the same time, they sometimes their ego or them around their boys, they think their masculinity has been challenged.
Correct.
Now,
There used to be a bar in Las Vegas when I first started going there, and
mm-hmm,
out of all the traveling I've done and worked in different cities and different nightclubs and things of that nature, it was the first bar that I knew of that was exclusively for trans women and their interests, their admirers, as they put it. And when I moved there, I found myself, I wasn't going anywhere else.
mm-hmm,
Like to be able to, go to a bar, I can sit, I can, be asked to dance, I can have conversation, and never, not one time do I have to say, do you realize or do you understand? Or let me just make sure, because every man that comes in that door knew where they were coming to. And
mm-hmm.
we didn't have those problems. It was a very lovely and great environment to be able to just not even have that conversation because they knew, you know. So
Hmm. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I was in Thailand and I actually, what you're saying now about the bars, the exclusive trans, I was in a couple of the bars there and the men didn't, and there was a lot of men there that came through the door and they knew exactly where they were. You didn't have to,
correct.
question these things. And that's a very good idea. Probably big business down the road, if you
Correct.
know what I
Correct. No,
mean.
well, I'm believe it or not, I'm working on it now.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a void. So I'm trying.
Wonderful. Now, let's talk a little bit. Now, when I want to know what you think brought all of this conversation in the government with all of these politicians now attacking drag and trans women. Now, this is my thought. This is the way I'm thinking. None of this, we've always been in the news about murders, trans murders, about the gay community, drugs, all these kind of things. But when RuPaul's Drag Race came onto television, it was a good thing, a good platform across the board for a lot of drag queens, not trans women, which
Mhm.
I think, my thought is, if he would have addressed that from the get go on the show, it would be helping what's happening now. But I said soon to my director, soon as TikTok took off, and you start seeing all these, this is not a black and white issue, young, mostly white men click clacking with fingernails, putting makeup on, and it became more and more and more. Men in general don't want to see their young 18 to 20, sometimes 16, 12-year olds click clacking with fingernail polish on and nails, regardless of how they feel inside. Most men, adult men, don't want to see their young male children with all of this makeup on, all of this freedom on a platform that is so big, undermining, I would say, masculinity.
Mhm.
Because two things, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think that this drag race helped spark what the conversation we're having now. But the trans community is what they target because that is the sexualized part of it. And
Well, I think that we are natural sexual beings
mhm,
because in most cases, and this is just true reality, when you see a trans woman, because of her transition, men naturally are going to be aroused. It's just because we fit into the criteria of attractive woman. Compared to the drag side of it, it's the illusion. And you still have men who are captivated by the illusion of that drag, what it presents, and how they look and dress and all that kind of stuff. But where I think the problem totally lies is the best way I can put it is the open and honest diversity of under. You have this wave that is basically going on that will open up doors for acceptance. Okay. This is just how I look at numbers. And when you have not only a group of people, but then a generation of people who are more acceptant or have more acceptance, then what was classified as the norm will not be the norm. You have a large percentage are identified as non-binary. You have another large percentage identified as trans woman or trans man. And now you have, more people coming out, oh, I'm bisexual or I'm trisexual, or however they want to label it. And then you get that collective of who thinks they're, remember numbers, majority, straight. Now you're feeling, oh, you're messing with the man and the woman livelihood and da 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 da. No, it's just more people are feeling like they don't have to hide who they are. That's just the same, in my opinion, of how you hear the talking points from the far right, for example. The majority and the minority. They're always referencing a group of people as the majority or the minority. You're only doing that, in my opinion, to convince someone that they are that. When actuality, for example, brown, black, Asian, yeah, we may be a minority individually, but collectively we are majority.
Now, I want to ask you one question real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to ask you about, like you said, the majority and the minority. Now, if you notice with the new Nazi groups and all these different groups that are now attacking the drag shows. Now, from us watching, the reason I'm saying this, I'm trying not to make this a black and white thing, but issue. But we noticed that this group of Nazis are not targeting the black clubs, the black trans and drag shows. They're not targeting those. They're targeting the predominantly white or mixed clubs or very visible clubs that they know. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's as simple as what I would call comfort. So let's look at, there was a time when gay men were looked at, oh, that's not da, 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 da. And it became so of the norm that everybody wants a gay friend now. You see what I'm saying? And so now is that the attention has diverted to another group of people, which is the drag queens per se, or it may be the Latino groups or the Latino clubs because they are quote unquote the problem. They're crossing the border. The Jewish are coming in and trying to take over. No, these people have always been here. I heard a politician talk about how the migrants, for example, are coming in and overflowing, the area, the border, and all that kind of stuff. And another gentleman that he was talking to, he was like, "No, they're just coming home. this part of the country on where I live at, California, Mexico, New Mexico, all of that was Spanish territory,
Mm-hmm.
and people often say, go back where you came from. And I tell people all the time, I don't ever like to make it a black or white issue, but there were no white people here at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to remember that. So when you tell somebody to go back to where you came from somewhere else too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it works across the board, and I think when it comes down to the white supremacists that are targeting certain groups, it's the ones that they hate the most, or the ones that they feel that they can do something about now, because we've gone through, people of color have
Mm-hmm.
gone through that process of saying, oh, you don't belong here, and da 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 da. And now they've moved on to another group of people because they're the easier targets.
Mm-hmm.
We had the people of color had to deal with that in the early 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when there wasn't an issue with, as they say, with the Latino and the Asian community. But now you see a collective of those kind of, nationalities coming over. Now they're easier target. Just the same with uh, the issues about quote unquote drag queens. Drag queens been we've been doing this for how many decades, and
Yeah.
you just not want to say something about it. I remember back when I first started doing drag in Alabama, they would tell us, "Oh, make sure you keep on at least one pair of boy underwear."
Mm.
And it was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's the law, because if they catch you, without, then they can charge you with something else, and blah blah blah. And it was just, I don't know if that actually was on the books, but it was that fear factor that was put there that was like, okay, well, I don't need no problems, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a focus of, redirecting attention to certain groups of people because they're easier target.
Mm-hmm. Now, we can talk all day about a lot of these issues, but at the end of the day, Black trans lives matter. And it's really an important issue for you and many other trans women and our community. It's something that we have to stand up for and protect. Now, what, in closing, what do you think we need to do now with all the laws and all of the rhetoric all over social media? What do you think we need to do?
Well, I'm a very political person, so I go to the politics side of it first.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have to also educate what laws are being passed, know the laws that are being passed. If you have an issue, speak up, speak out. I
Mm-hmm.
started a little hashtag when all this was started, using hashtag Queens United,
Mm-hmm.
simply because in order to do anything, we're going to have to unite wherever you are in your community. Just like the trans woman that's having issues up in Montana. Only reason they got accomplished what they wanted to accomplish is because the numbers were in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
This country is all about numbers, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
how many numbers you got in your bank account, what zip code you live in, those type of things. You have to be on top of it. And if you're not making those phone calls to your Congress people, to your city council people, to your mayor, to your state senate, your federal senate, your federal congressperson, it's just falling on deaf ear because you're not complaining, so they're gonna get away with whatever they can until you, the citizens, start complaining. And that's how you get
Mm-hmm.
things done. We have to unite around the political side of it because that's how they're getting us. They're passing laws left and right. You know, I'm in Houston, Texas right now, and I'm gonna tell you honestly, I had to think about coming here.
Oh.
I don't come here. It's been a lot that happened since the last time I was here. And it's like, I don't want no issues going into no bathrooms. I don't want no issues, with none of that stuff. So, I do the old school thing. keep my
Mm-hmm.
shades on, and walk with my head tilted and very, very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's sad that we have to do that because you never know how someone is going to react to who you are just because you're living your truth. Don't be
Mm-hmm.
mad at me because you don't have the kahunas to live your truth, because that's what it
Mm-hmm.
really boils down to. You know, you want to be mad because I chose to walk my truth, live my truth, but yet you are hiding behind the door, the keyboard, you know, in the
Mm-hmm.
closet, or however you want to label it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
it's sad.
it is sad. We're going to have to really be careful with where we're performing and what we're doing with our lives now, because just walking out your door now can get you in all kinds of situations, stuff that we
Yeah.
didn't and stuff that we weren't aware of before. But now it's good that we can visually see that people really don't like us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was booked at a club up in San Francisco. Well, actually, it's Oakland. It's called the Port Bar, and I had seen all this, advertising about it, and I wanted to work there, and I got an opportunity to work there, and didn't realize that the brunch was outside on the sidewalk, and
Mm-hmm.
so the whole time, and it was crazy, but in this day and age, you have to think about this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're downtown Oakland, and we're performing in front of the bar outside on the sidewalk, and they got the seats there set up and everything. But there are cars passing by left and right, and I'm like, "Oh Lord Jesus, just keep me covered, honey, because you can have a Looney Tune that just pass by and do something crazy, and here we are. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sad that we have to think about those things now, but it's the day and age that we live in. It's like, people are walking in churches, grocery stores. I even
Mm-hmm.
brought it up. There's a place also in San Francisco that I work at, and I had brought up to the owners because it's a dinner club, and
Mm-hmm.
during the beginning of well, once everybody's seated, they close the curtains to the front door, and it covers the front door. And for me, it was like, boo, this is a prime spot where someone can just stick the barrel of a gun in and just spray the whole place. I said, sad to say, but we have to think like criminals because we're dealing with criminals. That's the only way you're going to stay two steps ahead, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom always would tell me, like, you probably should have been an investigator because you always investigate something. And I'm like, well, I need to analyze and understand and comprehend why something is the way it is. And you know, when it comes out to criminals, I'm thinking like they thinking, so I can make sure you don't get over on me. You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dominique, I want to just say congratulations again on the title that you've won and your recent title and all of the other titles that we have great respect for, Miss Stonewall, Miss Continental, Miss Black America, and many others that you have won.
Oh, thank you.
And I want to just say thank you so much for shedding a little light on the situations and the issues that are concerning our community in a really big way. And it's great that you have taken a stance as a trans woman to help and educate other trans women and bring awareness to issues that sometimes either bar owners or the girls might not be aware of. And you've enlightened me a lot today with the security issues I've noticed in our conversations. You talked a lot about security and how we
Oh
need to
yeah.
be aware of our surroundings and what's going on when you're performing or you're going to your car, you're going to the grocery store, or just in general living your lives, where we need to be a little bit more vigilant about those things.
Correct.
And
Correct.
as trans women, we're going to have a lot of this conversation down the road. And I hope to invite you back on with a panel of trans women so we can talk about the bathroom issue.
Oh yes, I would love that. I would love that.
So I want to just say to our audience today, I want to thank Domanique Shappelle, the current reigning Miss.
Well, no miss, but just California National Showgirl.
Okay, California National Showgirl, and like I said before, a former Miss Continental. And we wanted to say thank you for having her on the. Thank her for being on the show today. She did a great job inspiring
Thank
and
you. I'm glad
educating
we got
us.
all that stuff figured out, all the
Yeah,
technical
it was great.
side.
You know,